The common flood stories from antiquity carry the same inner teaching. They didn't really happen, but there's a reason that they're there. I've done videos on them before, but I want to do something and show how this teaching about inner cleaning, inner purging, getting rid of what is inside of you, getting rid of all of the things that we have learned, the pain, the shame, the hurt, the convictions, the things in life that when we're ready to go on our healing path, we look at it and think, oh gosh, where did I come from? And we need to clear things out. Now, in the very first, well, I'm not going to cover those stories. I've done it before, but I'm going to talk about this, that when you play those out in the psyche, that the world is you. When you play it out inside, it starts here and goes inside. It is no longer about the physical world. Remember, we transition this from outward looking to inward looking. If you want to question that, remember, lay yourselves up treasures in heaven where moth and dust do not corrupt, not on earth. What does that mean? Not in the physical world, but in the spiritual world, in the spiritual realm now. This is what we're working on. All the clues that we have point to us turning inward. And then what happens in life is that in the stories, they both, or all of them, kind of have this idea that there's too many people, that there's too many things, it's too raucous, it's too noisy, there's sin, there's something somehow has gotten so much, so bad, that there has to be a flood to wipe it all out. And that after that flood happens, everything starts over anew, back down to its simplest form. That's what we as humans want to do on a healing path. We get very full of things, and then we want to rid that stuff out. And the flood stories are analogous for that. They exist in different places, but they're on that template of the hero's journey. The reason they look the same is because they're a story that is being passed along in their culture to teach a lesson that is nested in something. Floods would have been wonderful analogs. Stinky place throughout the year as people come and go and waste accumulates. Flood season comes, wipes it all out. Oh, it's all clean again. Flood is a good representation of purging one out of all of our thoughts, becoming empty, poor in spirit. All of those things which are alluding to the idea that we have so much stuff up here, we can't settle down and we need to get rid of it. The flood is that. I'm going to pop up a graph here showing the hero's journey, how it works. The call to adventure starts at the top. That's us when we're ready to go take care of our issues. Where are the issues? Right at the bottom. Abyss, death, and rebirth. That is where the flood is. That is where the flood exists on this template. That is where you go in and wash out everything that is there. However, in the thousands of appearances of the hero's journey template that exists in antiquity, they can't use the flood story in every one of them. That would look a little too obvious. And everybody's sharing these stories and they're getting spread around verbally. We got to mix things up. They can't sound the same. So what I'm going to suggest is that as we play them out in the psyche, we can begin to see the analogous process that they're using and see how they shift everything on the template. What we know about the flood story is that it's not about a flood. It is about living life unaware, accumulating all of your convictions, getting to a point where you think, oh my gosh, I've got to change my life. I can't live this way. I got to make changes. I want to make changes. Then that is where the template picks up. And what we have to do is go clean out that stuff. All the things that we've picked up in life that are pain or shame or hurt, the things that make us angry, the things that cause us to act out, all of that stuff is a massive stuff up here. And that's what we're supposed to go after. And we know that. Why is it nested in a story like this? Because most people would rather have the story than do the work. But for those of us who are interested in doing the work, this is the procedure. This is what I found, and I can demonstrate it, so let's just go through it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Marvin Meyer translation of the Nag Hammadi. I'm going to read something from the Gospel of Philip that is a Jesus variant. This is how they're teaching purging it out without the flood story. Check it out. It's called Hidden Parts. As long as their insides are hidden, most beings in the world are alive and well. If their insides are exposed, they die, as is clear by the example of the visible part of a person. As long as a person's intestines are hidden, the person is alive. If the intestines are exposed and come out, the person dies. Likewise, while its root is hidden, a tree sprouts and grows. If its root is exposed, the tree withers. I'm going to keep reading, but what I'm going to ask you to do is try to visualize this playing out in parts of your psyche. How does this work in the mind? That's what we're looking at. Like this, as long as their insides are hidden, most beings in the world are alive and well. What are the beings inside of us? How does that work? As we go through, what we see is that the being is an analog being used to hold the idea of a creation. And the creation is, I had this experience with somebody else, and because of that experience, I now feel this way. Boom, right there. That being, that is a being. We created that being that now resides there, and if it's not interacted with, yeah, here's where it comes in. As long as the insides are hidden, most things are here. We have things hidden inside of us, and as long as we hide them inside of us, they're alive. We deny them, we leave them be. Within the richness of the analogs that are in this, we also see the tree that comes from the Bible, the tree that grows up, gets cut down, grows up, gets cut down until it's taken out by the root. This is going to continue to cycle until we go back and address the beginning. If you got hurt and it keeps acting out, and the evil is not you being evil, it is the bad stuff that happens. These are all analogs. That this continues to happen out until we go back to the original source and do whatever it takes. Forgiveness, resolving it, finding some way to unwrap ourselves from what happened, that we're so that we hang on to it so much that it continues to hurt us in the manner in which we're holding on to it. That's hard to see, but that's what happens. So it is with all things produced in the world, not only with the visible, but also with the hidden. As long as the root of evil is hidden, it is strong. When it is recognized, it is undone, and if it is brought to light, it dies. For this reason, the word says, already the axe is laid at the root of the trees. It will not merely cut them down, for what is cut down sprouts up again. Rather, the axe will dig down until it cuts out the root. Jesus pulled out the root of the whole place, but others did so only in part. Boom, flood story, variant. You go inside, you got to clean out everything. The stuff that is hidden inside of there stays alive and strong as long as you deny it. Once you recognize it, once you say, I'm going to go deal with this stuff, face it, you look at it, you start healing. As soon as you stop denying it and start looking at it and exposing it, bringing it into the light, you begin to heal. And it went on to say Jesus went in and cleaned out the whole place while others did it only partially, which, a flood is a complete cleaning. This is indicating probably a little bit more detail, that some people go in and say, I'm going to resolve a couple of issues because they're really bad, but I'm not going to take care of everything. And they still have things going on. Some people take the path all the way to enlightenment, and some people just take the path far enough to resolve a few issues. All of that is being covered here. Jesus has another way. These are analogs, remember, cleaning the inside of the cup. We are the cup. The cup is full. The wineskin, we are the old wine. We are the wineskin. The old wineskin cannot put new wine into it. New life cannot go into our old selves. We must purge ourselves first before we put new life into our old self. That's it. Analogously, that is what they're teaching in here. In the flood stories, yeah, they exist for a reason. Were there flood? There is always floods. 12,000 feet altitude here in the mountains. There's fossil seashells. And actually, I went and grabbed one off the shelf. I collected one. I used to climb up there all the time. It's some kind of you can see that it's my focus here is not right. Anyway, okay, so yeah, these are up there. This is 12,000 feet up in the mountains. Oh, hundreds and hundreds of miles away from the ocean. And I have a relative that says this proves Noah's flood. This is a fossil. It took, oh my gosh, hundreds of thousands, millions of years for this to come about. To grab this as a data point and say that proves the flood is not critical thinking. It's not thinking through everything else. It's not taking everything into account. That is where somebody is saying, there's the evidence I want, forget everything else, that proves what I want. We're not going to do that. But we're going to look at the flood story, however, and say, you know what, it's viable. Floods happen all over. They clean things out. It's a perfect analog. It came through their time. It fits with this template. Everybody that needs it to be true for whatever reason, whether they're for theistic reasons or for earlier civilization and high technology or whatever, wiped out by a flood or some sort of a KT event and all that, none of that, everybody is building those ideas off of the flood stories without understanding that the flood stories are built on a self-healing template. I'm not going to get into this one right now, but Atlantis is this story. It's Plato's version of three. Inside is the holy, the rings, the three rings. It sank down, it went into the sea. Due to the evil ways of its people, it's another version that didn't come back. Here we are. We're living out Plato's version. We are Atlantis. I don't know. Everything cycles. It's weird when you look at it. You go, God. Anyway, I'm off subject there. The thing is that these flood stories are very important, but you have to understand what they are. But the people that carry them as true, think of the ark. What is the ark? The ark is something that is very pretty, powerful, being carried by the masses that can't see inside of it. The stories are the arks. But observe, when you learn this, you realize that all of the stories keep humanity busy. That's what it looks like to me. You have to read everything, learn every possible thing. And I mean about these stories from antiquity, the myths, the Greek and Roman myths. Honestly, if you're really into this and you're like familiar with the Bible, just because it seems like there's a lot of familiarity with the Bible, if you're open to using the Bible and not connected with it in a way that's going to make it so that it's inaccessible to you, you have to be able to read it as if you're reading something like this. Not sacrilegious, but not having a reverence that makes you go, oh my gosh, I can't come to those kind of choices because of fear. You have to be able to read it like a textbook, like entertainment. It's in a genre, however, that is very guilt-laced. I'm not connected with that. So if you're not, you can do this. The Bible contains hundreds, if not thousands, of examples of the hero's journey. The story of Enoch is a version. Genesis is a version. The Tower of Babel, destroying what is in there. What is that? That is our that is our inner part where we think something bigger about ourselves. We tear that down. All of these are continuously fit on that template. Look for those parts and you'll find it all over. And then they sequence it. This is what they did. This is what they did for a living. It's not history. These are rich. There's something in here. We're not finding it. Hope the video was fun. Love one another. I'll see you in the next one. The Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, and we can keep that isolated down to specific books. You don't have to get into Hinduism. I would say just go with the Bhagavad-Gita. That's it. This template is there. Go with, go through, there is not a physical arc. If you play all of it in the psyche, you realize, wait a minute. It's like we're living life backwards. We should be living from inside, but we're living outside. Does that make sense? You have to have a certain, no, it doesn't make sense to start with. I'm going to cut that part out. That just sounded goofy.